Peace, folks. It's Carmen D. Player, Cosmic Hype Woman of the Universe. Hype being, have your perspective elevated. So this is a word that was given to me from Spirit through meditation, through conversation, and I trust that it will serve you as much as it served me. So, a lot's been going on. We are literally at the beginning of the next major shift in consciousness for humanity. Let me back up. So, the cool thing about Spirit is that Spirit is like your best homegirl, homeboy, homie possible. Whatever it is that you believe, Spirit's like, yes, let's manifest that. I'm gonna show you exactly what you believe. No matter what you believe, I'm gonna show you exactly what you believe. So in like November, like the last quarter of 2019, I start to hear a lot of people talking about, oh yeah, 2020 is going to be something new. 2020 is going to be a brand new life. 2020 is going to be breaking of chains. 2020 is going to be third eye vision. It's going to be 2020 clear. The veil's going to be dropped, so on and so forth. And Spirit said, yes, so many people are feeling this vibe of change, of life changing, of the way that we exist in our being changing completely. So many people around the world had the exact same kind of vibe and frequency, and Spirit said, yes. Now, about that. So in order for us to have something completely different from the existence that we had before, everything has to come up. Everything is being invited to be confronted, right? We're having to name everything from environmental injustices that have been happening to all the different types of bigotry that have been perpetuated to the systems of oppression and suppression that we have been seeing and people have been dealing with and existing under. When we think about the maltreatment of individuals who have been marginalized because of the way that systems have been created, when we think about the transgressions that we have perpetuated as human beings amongst each other and to each other, it's all coming up and it's all being named. It's also giving us an opportunity to shift and change things. This is the revolution, right? This is the absolute opposite of what's happening. It's the dismantling and the breaking down of the existing experience for something completely new. Now, here's the thing. We recognize that we're in a very critical period of humanity. Our Earth is in a critical point. We've seen the data that tells us about degrees that are increasing and the tragedy that's happening in our oceans, in our forests, and the polar caps, so on and so forth. Its impact on people. We talk about environmental discrimination. We talk about the environmental injustices that happen, particularly with people, poor people, or people who exist in a condition of poverty. We're seeing a lot of it. And so in order for us to have a revolution, everything has to change. And we see it. People are calling it, right? Folks are in the streets calling for this monumental change. People are in the streets calling for justice. People are in the streets demanding that things change, period. It's unquestionable. And so Spirit was showing me some things and telling me some things. And part of it was kind of captured right here in the shirt. The revolution is here. The revolution is here, right? Because everything that we're seeing is a manifestation of consciousness. Everything that we're seeing are byproducts of thoughts. They're constructs. So if something was constructed by thought, then something can be deconstructed by thought and reconstructed to do a brand new thing. So if we know that at the root of what we're seeing, if we were to go all the way back, the consciousness that have created white supremacy, racism, anti-gay bigotry, anti-trans bigotry, xenophobia, all the isms, misogyny. If we know that this comes from a consciousness that's then manifesting material to power, to systems, to resources and how they're allocated, then the revolution is not just going to be breaking down those systems and replacing it. The revolution is going to be a shift and a change in consciousness, a change in heart. I would like to think that it's actually the freedom and the releasing of God in each and every single one of us. God as love, unconditional love, of abundance, of peace, of joy, of happiness, of enough for all, a win-win situation. If we allow our true selves to come forth, which I believe our true selves is God, then that's where the revolution is. But here's the thing. If I can recognize white supremacy out there and racism out there, that means there must be some internalized oppression in here, because I can't recognize what I don't have the schema for. Let me put it in other words. I could have someone speaking to me in Mandarin, and I'm just looking at them and nodding. Okay, sure. I don't recognize Mandarin because I don't have the schema for Mandarin. It's not in here. I can't recognize. I can't call it forth. I can't. You might be able to use some movements or some pictures, and I can like piece things together, but it would take a lot. So if that being said, if I see anti-queer bigotry happening and I'm able to identify it, that means there's something within me that resonates with it. And I'm not saying that I'm aligned with it, but there's something within me that can see it, that can recognize it, that can name it. So that means that there's something within me that has been making space and room for it, that I've been carrying. And I know that this is going to stink. It's going to stink for people to think that I have internalized racism or internalized misogyny or internalized homophobia and transphobia or anything else like that. And here's the thing about it. When we've been living in a country that's been founded on a thought of supremacy of certain individuals, groups, or populations, while others are inferior and therefore relegated to a place of believing year after year, generation after generation, that is their plight and where they're supposed to be, we've all been breathing in this smog. We've been breathing it in, this smog. So it's going to take a lot of time for us to pull that out and breathe a new air, right? But we can. There's no one that's been living in this land that wasn't impacted by it, either with privilege or you've been oppressed. There are times that I have some privilege by having an education. I have some privilege because both my parents went to college. I have some privilege because like I have a full-time job. I have some privileges, right? So for me to act as if I don't have privilege would be false. However, I am not a straight white man. I'm just gonna put it out there. So I'm just not, right? What we recognize is that there are systems in place that have allowed people to experience privilege and allowed other people to not experience privilege, to be oppressed and suppressed. And you could debate it, you could say what you want to, but I'm just looking at reality and facts over here, just looking at observing what's actually manifesting into reality. So in order for us to have a revolution, we have to identify within ourselves what needs to be uprooted. The revolution is going to be in the revolution of our heart, right? We need to show up differently for ourselves and for our family, for our community. This is an invitation of spirit. If we want this revolution and we are manifesting this revolution, it's going to have to start right here in our home, in our home, in our home, in our home, right? With the relationships that we have with ourselves and with the people directly with us, because it's going to allow us to have different types of conversations. Because if we don't uproot all the bigotry and the oppression and suppression that's within us, that we've experienced, that we might be perpetuating, that we are perpetuating, then after all of this happens and the systems are changed and it's broken down, we're still going to have the lingering thing that manifested this experience still there, because we haven't uprooted it and dismantled it, called it out and expelled it and replaced it with love, with actually allowing love and healing and peace and joy and abundance to actually manifest in this space. If we don't uproot it now, then it's actually going to just have a different name, or a different face, but it'll still be the same byproduct. Part of the reason why we have had generations the same that's been happening over and over and over again is that we've done some significant dismantling or chipping away at the systems that have been keeping people oppressed and have been allowing others to experience privilege. But part of the reason why it has not been as monumental as to dismantle it completely, to break it down, is because it still exists within us, right? So it's being able to feed off generations of energy and thoughts, right? Of people perpetuating things. So this revolution that we're calling forth is a revolution of our mind and our hearts. I feel like it's so valuable to also look at how we are calling forth the tearing down of statues that are idols of bigotry, that are idols of suppression and oppression. When we think about the Confederacy, when we think about Ponce de Leon or Columbus statues that have been taken down, what statues are within you? What things are within you that are being held to this standard, that are being clung to as part of our identity, that are actually apparitions of the past? Because for so long, I mean, these statues have been around for a long time. People have been walking past us, on and so forth. It wasn't until we had a shift of consciousness collectively that we're like, no more. We won't do this. We see this. We know what this means. No longer will we allow this to actually stand any longer. Do we start pulling them down? Start breaking them down. Pulling them down from their pedestals. What statues are within ourselves that we're holding on to from an old paradigm, from an old consciousness that we keep kind of walking past, but we still have erect? We get to pull it down. We get to tear it down. We get to allow for a new space of healing, of existence and experience. So, as I say all of this is our invitation to be the revolution. The revolution is right here. The revolution is right here. My beloved brother Armand gave me a word that's just so classic. And it's applicable to this time. And he gave me this probably in 2010, 2011. And I was going back and forth about where I should be at different schools because I needed to leave because it wasn't good for my spirit. And like, but what about the kids? And what about the families? And how am I supposed to do this work? And he just said, so cool and so calm, the revolution is where you are. The revolution is where you are. So I give you these words as an invitation from Spirit to ignite the revolution right here, because this revolution will impact out there. And so it is.